water will respond and change its molecular structure. We as human beings happen to be made up of over 70% water. We conduct electricity through that water. And when somebody gets sick or experiences disease, it's a dis-ease of energy moving through the body, meaning energy and electricity is not moving properly.
Bring me up to speed on this pretty slick-looking pyramid behind you, man. What am I looking at there exactly?
So it's called the light system. This is taking different wavelengths of light and helping your body synchronize with that. So think red light therapy, but on a much larger scale. So it helps recharge my cells because that's part of what this is doing. It's increasing cellular millivoltage by increasing mitochondrial activity. So it's helping your cells increase the amount of electricity it's producing. When you have more of that, you have more energy to help the body heal itself. I'm doing my best to build something new.
All right, we are live, Jason. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well, Rob. I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. I'm back after a long tour, sitting back at my desk. I couldn't be happier.
Good, man. I'm glad to hear it. So I'm excited for this conversation because I get pitched all kinds of guests. I'm sure you do too. And like some are interesting, some I decline the invite on. And I'm definitely in like the biohacking space to some extent, kind of by way of nutrition and fitness and training. But you're coming at it from a totally different angle with, energy, synchronicity, which is something I haven't really, dove too deeply into. So just speak to me in layman's terms, man. Like for me and the listeners that are totally ignorant on this subject matter, break it down in depth for us.
So I will say I am a lay person myself. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I come from a background of real estate. What got me into this is passion. I saw a lot of people get really well. And my question was like, how the hell does that work? Like how does light, how does color, how does any of that work to help the body rebalance itself? And then I kind of changed my course in life because I wanted to do something a lot more meaningful. So I share that because I'm the lay person too. All right. I can't use words I don't know because I wasn't taught in that school, but I can use words that we would all understand because I come from the same world as most people. Nice. So, you mentioned something of the world that you come from and you're not really familiar with this. And I will say, they're not really different. They're actually the same exact thing because, and I'll ask you, we'll do this back and forth between me and you and everybody watching can enjoy it. What is your body made of? It starts with an A, you know what I'm talking about, but what is your body and everything else made of in this world?
Energy, I would assume would be the
energy. You could say light, atoms, let's say.
Atoms.
Whatever. It's all the same thing. But your first answer was 100% accurate because the makeup of an atom, and I'm breaking this down because I want to make it super easy to understand. So the breakdown of an atom is only 0.00001% matter. That means that 99.9999% of an atom is not physical. It's made up of energy. And yet we're so focused in this world, focused on the 0.00001%. But we're not focusing on the root that governs the physical world. And that root is basically the world of energy. Now, some people can call it the spiritual woo-woo stuff. And I'm definitely into that, but I like it with a scienced background, some sort of factual background where we can ground it back into reality of how does this work? Right? How does it work to be able to connect to the physical, but understanding it from an energetic basis? Because if energy is what an atom is predominantly made of, then energy is what we really have to be paying attention to because it's those laws that dictate everything else in this world. That's why I say it's the same thing.
Yeah. How do you kind of toe the line between, because like a lot of people, they're kind of turned off by the whole woo-woo, mystical component of things. And I'm very, I come from a scientific background, so I'm very analytical in nature and I just like, hard facts. But I'm open-minded and receptive and I'm totally keen on learning the spiritual realm of things too. But some people take this very crazy out there approach to that. So it's like a turnoff for many. How do you kind of toe that line and stay rooted from a place of reason?
I do the same thing you do. I can't accept something without understanding it and logically connecting the dots between them. So I'll give you an example. When you hear the word chakra, everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about? That's woo-woo. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't exist. And Eastern medicine will say you have 7 different chakras. Western medicine will say that's a whole bunch of nonsense. You have different organs in the body. You have different systems in the body, the endocrine system, pulmonary system, cardiovascular system, and so on and so forth. Now, here's how we'll bridge the gap. The first thing to do to bridge the gap, to understand that they're not saying two different things. They're just saying it in two different ways, almost like religion, right? You have Jews and you have Muslims and you have Christians and you have Buddhists, and everybody has their own story. But if you look at the essence and the principles of the story, even though one uses Muhammad, the other one uses Moses, the other one uses Jesus, it's saying the same exact thing. It's just saying it in a different way. So I'm saying the same thing is happening with Eastern woo-woo stuff and Western accepted stuff. So alternative medicine and conventional medicine. The foundation that we first need to understand is the two philosophies by which each work. So the guys on the Eastern side, thousands of years ago, come from a perspective called holism. And the guys today on the Western side, the conventional side, come from a perspective of reductionism. So back
Mm-hmm.
in the day, one person was an expert in many things. So the physicist was also a mathematician who was also an astronomer. They knew a lot about a lot, and they were able to connect the dots. Today, we don't have that anymore. Today, we're specialists. So people become so specialized in one thing that they don't learn anything else. And then when the psychologist speaks to the biologist, they don't really understand how to connect the dots and how to bridge the gaps because they're specialists in their own realms that in reality are interconnected, but each one has been an expert and become an expert in each specific discipline. So the difference between holism and reductionism, and how I'm going to get back to the chakras to show you a perfect example, is the following analogy or example. Let's assume there are two screens. Both screens are made up of a lot of pixels. And on those screens, you have a picture. Now, let's assume that each screen has infinite pixels, because in the world of reality today, if everything is made up of energy, and energy, the first law of thermodynamics is energy cannot be created or destroyed, that means that energy is infinite by fact. That's a scientific fact. So these two screens are made up of infinite pixels showing the same infinite picture, whatever that means. Now, the reductionist guys, the guys today, look at the screen and they say, I want to become an expert in every single pixel on the screen. Now, they forgot that the screen is infinite. You cannot become an expert in something that never ends because you're just going to keep going and going and going and going. But they pursue that endeavor anyway. So they become an expert in one pixel. Let's call that pixel acne. And then because they've become an expert in the pixel of acne, they create something called Accutane. And Accutane really does get rid of acne. But because they weren't looking at all the other pixels, it will destroy the pixel that we call the liver. That's what side effects are. It's reductionism. It's taking the whole and breaking it down to its parts. So it's
Mm-hmm.
saying, I've perfected understanding this pixel at the expense of this pixel. Accutane destroys the liver. This pill destroys the heart. This pill destroys the spleen, and so on and so forth. Holism comes from a different perspective. The Eastern guys say, listen, energy can't be created or destroyed. And factually, everything is made up of energy. So if everything is made up of energy and it is absolutely infinite, why bother trying to know everything about something that never ends? We're never going to get to the end of it. So instead, they said, let's just understand the governing laws behind what dictates how this screen operates and how all the pixels move together. And that's what we call the laws of energy. So like energy can't be created or destroyed is one of them. The law of resonance, it's how walkie-talkies and radios work. That's another one of them. So that states what you resonate with is what you're going to experience. Just like if there's a hip hop radio station on 97.1 FM, it's a frequency modulation. I need to use the tuner to tune to that frequency to be able to hear that hip hop channel. That's the law of resonance. And we can go on and on. But in essence, the way that this would relate to chakras is, and bridging the gap between what people call crazy and making it something that's grounded in just fact and scientific truth, is thousands of years ago when they looked at these 7 different energy centers and identified them, all they're saying is, or the question they're asking is, not how does the heart work on the deepest of all realms, because you'll never completely understand that on an individual pixel level because it's connected to everything else. All they wanted to know, and the question they asked was, from the level of energy, what is the optimal frequency of the heart? That's all they wanted to know. And how they found it, I don't know. But I know that they're right, and I'll tell you why. What they call the heart chakra, which sounds woo-woo, the conventional guys call the cardiovascular system and the pulmonary system. Because in Eastern medicine, the heart chakra that's identified as the color green is your heart and your lungs on the map of the body. Now, why is it identified as the color green? Look at the 7 different energy centers or chakras, the woo-woo things. They're in order of the spectrum of color before anybody understood that there was a spectrum of color. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Color, scientifically, is a wavelength. It's the length of a wave measured in nanometers, meaning it's an energy measured in nanometers. So green is an energy measured in nanometers. And that energy is something that your brain, that wavelength, is something that your brain decodes and projects as the color green. That's what we call green. But all it is a wavelength. It's a frequency. They were able to identify the optimal frequency of each organ of the body, and that's all a chakra is. It's saying the cardiovascular system and the pulmonary system, its optimal frequency is what we call the green color, which is a certain range of nanometers. Take yellow. Yellow is your digestive system. The woo-woo guys call it the solar plexus. The conventional guys call it the digestive system. The color is roughly 540 nanometers. Now look at food if you want to ground it into physicality. What foods are good for your digestive system? And the answer is the ones that target them are yellow ones. Bananas are very good for your digestive system. Lemon in your water, rebalance your digestive system. Red, which is your root, which the conventional guys call inflammation, circulation, blood flow. What foods reduce inflammation? Raspberries, cranberries, cherries, strawberries, red light therapy. So color is a form of light. The woo-woo guys are not that woo-woo because they just understood back then from a holism perspective, what is the optimal frequency that each organ operates at? And when we understand that optimal frequency, we don't need to dive into the infinite. We just need to understand its governing principles. That's why red light therapy works. That's why blue light therapy works. That's why light is being used as a form of medicine, because we are made of light. We are literally, on a scientific level, bodies of light, only light that you can't see in the visible spectrum, in the words that I'm talking about. And we're using certain frequencies to synchronize the body with something that it works in an optimal way. That's essentially one way to bridge the woo-woo to what's going on today. It's a terminology crisis. They're not saying two different things.
This is totally off on a tangent, probably, but why do you think Western society is so reductionist in nature in the first place? Like, where does that stem from?
I think it's a combination. This is my opinion. I think it's a combination of two things: a lack of knowledge and awareness. And I also believe that it's done by design. Because if you put yourself in, and I hope you're not one of these people. I'm sure you're not one of these people if we're having this conversation. But let's assume that you were a psychopath. And let's assume that you were an individual that liked a lot of power and liked a lot of control. You're going to do whatever you can to hold that power and control. And we see it in the world today. We see that it's profit over people and not people over profit. It's all about the stock price. It's all about the money. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Now, if you know one thing about really, really wealthy people, and I'm not saying that wealthy people are bad people. I come from a very wealthy family. It's not about bad people. There are people with a lot of money that use it for bad purposes, and there are people with a lot of money that use it for good purposes. But both of those people have something in common. And the something in common that they have is they will never use their personal names to operate anything. That's why you have corporations. That's why you have trusts. That's why you have foundations. That's how these things work. So let's go into the corporate world to understand that more and why I'm sharing this in the first place. Coca-Cola is a very big company, but Coca-Cola owns Nestle, owns Dasani, owns Snapple, and owns like hundreds of other sub-brands. So we have this illusion that we're buying from all these different companies when really they're all controlled by the same mother corporation that's controlled by certain individuals who are generally behind the scenes. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because we could talk about one here. One of them is called the Rockefeller Foundation. The Rockefeller Foundation is owned by the Rockefeller family. The Rockefeller Foundation, if you look and do just a little bit of research into what they're tied to, they are responsible for writing the medical curriculum that is taught in medical schools in this country and outside of this country. They are also responsible for writing what's called the Physician's Desk Reference. It's a book that comes out every single year that doctors get if they order it. That's basically a book of legal drug dealing. So if you're a doctor and you have the PDR, you open the book to the name of the diagnosis that your patient has, and it tells you exactly what drugs to give. And then the same people behind that foundation are also the same people that are giving the doctors the drugs to give to the patients. They're also the same people that got those drugs mandated in certain countries around the world for children to be able to go to school. And they're also the same people that have enough ties in government and Congress to be able to get Congress to pass an act that says if you get hurt from our products, you can't sue us. Now that, my friend, is a perfect monopoly. But it's a monopoly that is used for evil. It's not being used for good. It's a monopoly used for power and control. And now, if you look from the perspective of the doctor, they're in a really bad position because the average doctor is a very good person. And they go to school because they want to be able to help people. They want to be able to help people heal themselves around the world. So the average Joe goes to school for the first 4 years of regular college, goes into student debt, decides he wants to go to med school, spends another 6 or 7 years in med school in more debt. By the time he's 28 years old, he gets a medical license. He's also $500,000 in debt. And what he doesn't know is the same people who gave him the loan are the same people who told him what he's going to be taught in medical school, who are the same people that are telling him what drugs he's going to give to his patients. And that's the same people that are telling him, well, if you do this, we're going to pull your license away. So even if that average Joe that's a doctor wakes up to the corruption that's going on in the system by design, right? There are things that are my opinion, then there's a design that we're seeing here. Well, if that average Joe that's a doctor wakes up, he's got a problem. Because what do you think happens if he speaks out? They take his license away. If they take his license away, he's $500,000 in debt. He has no way of paying it off. So this guy is now basically chained and handcuffed, metaphorically, to not be able to speak, even if he sees a problem, because of how the system is built. So to answer your question, because that was a long one, but to answer your question in short and like a summary, I think it's a combination of we lack knowledge and awareness, and I think it's also by design. Look at the food that we're eating. Look at the water that we're drinking. It's dumbing us down 24/7. This world is becoming more and more toxic by not the day, not the hour, the second. And people are getting dumber and dumber.
No, I totally agree. How do you prevent or hedge against just becoming overly cynical as a human being, knowing that?
It's a good question. It's a great question because, I don't live my life afraid of what I just said. And I don't live my life looking at the world and saying, what a disgusting place. I actually live my life looking at the world and saying, this is such an incredible place. And look at the bodies that we're living in. And look at the amount of electricity that we have running through our bodies. We have 3 trillion volts of electricity running through our body at any given moment. That's an insane amount of energy. So it actually gives me a little bit of hope, because if we got this far with the amount of resistance that I just explained, how far can we get by making people aware and knowledgeable of what's going on so they don't take part in that anymore? So there are some people in my shoes that are just like angry, and I think I just channel it differently because I'm a believer, again, from the perspective of energy. What's the difference between anger and joy? And the answer is a frequency. If I were to connect an EKG to you, when you felt anger over joy, you would just see a different modulation. It's the same energy expressed differently. So that's kind of how I look at the world as a whole. How do I take the really hard things that are happening and channel it in a way that's really positive?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I feel like perspective is everything. Like when you look at the emotions of fear and the emotions of hope, like they elicit the exact same physiological response for the most part. Like it's all just in how you approach it. So yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
It's interesting stuff.
Bring me up to speed on this pretty slick looking pyramid behind you, man. What am I looking at there exactly?
Do you see it on the screen right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty. So
It's
this
mesmerizing.
beautiful thing is what I like to call medicinal art. So it's called the light system, and it's built on everything that I just said, by the way. So when I first looked at something like this, I'm like, what the hell is color and light going to do for me? And I think we answered half of that question already, because look, people are using light therapy all around the world. But this is more than light therapy. This is taking different wavelengths of light and helping your body synchronize with that. So think red light therapy, but on a much larger scale. So like I could do a lot of things to this thing right now. I could change the colors. I can target different types of frequencies. I could do a bunch of different things simultaneously on this pyramid at the same time. Now, the shape is more so for an aesthetic purpose, and not this one, but the main ones that the light system puts out there now is in the direct proportion of the Pyramid of Giza, which is just a cool little fun fact.
Hmm.
What you're looking at on the screen when I pause it looks like a bunch of code. And I can take that code and I can translate it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on this camera, but I can translate it into English. So when I pause it, you may be able to make out some words over there. Now,
Interesting.
what you're looking at is based on a study done in the 1990s by a man named Dr. Masaru Emoto. Dr. Masaru Emoto is a very, or was, because he's dead now, but he was a very interesting man. And he had a hypothesis. He was a businessman. He turned into a scientist. And his question was at the time, about 30 years ago, is it possible for my thoughts, my words, my emotions, my affirmations, whatever it is it possible for those things to change the physical environment around me? And everybody looked at him and they said, what the hell are you talking about, dude? No, you can't do that, because to change something, you have to touch it. It's physical. You can't do something like that. And he said, you may be right, but you may be wrong. So let's do a study. And he took 2 cups of water, 2 petri dishes in this case. This is a study anybody can look up. Dr. Masaru Emoto, Emoto, the water experiment. And it's a very famous experiment done over and over and over again. I've done it myself. He took 2 petri dishes of water, and to one, he spoke very negatively towards, and everybody's looking at him like, dude, you're weird. Nothing's going to happen here. And the other one, he spoke very positively to. Now, I just want to preface on this because this is important. The difference between, some people think you have to speak to have that outcome. That's not true. The difference between a thought and your speech is just the fact that you can hear one and you can't hear the other. But they're both frequencies that both impact the environment, and Emoto proved it to us. The negative water, that we'll call the negative petri dish, he froze and put it under a molecular microscope to see the molecular formation of that water. Because if he's using water as the medium to be able to decide what happens and how do things change, the way that he's measuring it is there a difference between the bad cup and the good cup in the molecular formation of water? And can I repeat that over and over and over again? So he took the water in both. He froze them after he did his negative and positive thoughts, words, affirmations, beliefs, and so on. And he looked at it under a molecular microscope. And what he found, time and time again, is that in the negative oriented water, the molecular structure of water was always distorted. It was always disgusting. There was no order to it whatsoever. But in the good petri dish, it was always like a snowflake. It was always some sort of coherent geometric structure. Now, why is that important? Because number one, what he showed through that study is that just through your words, just through your thoughts, water will respond and change its molecular structure. We as human beings happen to be made up of over 70% water. We conduct electricity through that water. And when somebody gets sick or experiences disease, which is a dis-ease, it's a dis-ease of energy moving through the body, meaning energy and electricity is not moving properly. Well, think about it like a hose. If you have a hose that's all kinked up and you try to get water through it, it's not going to end very well. But if you have a hose that's in perfect formation where water can flow, it's going to flow beautifully. The water in your body and its structure are the pipes that have electricity moving through it. Think about it like that. And if the water in your body is structured in a coherent way, energy and electricity will move, it will not get stuck, and therefore you will experience health. When the structures of water in your body, the pipes, are all messed up like the hose that we said, the electricity and the energy cannot move coherently. That's called a dis-ease of energy. You end up getting sick. Now, why does what he said work on the level of its mechanism? How does that happen? And one of the laws of energy that I'll prove to you as well is called the law of synchronization. The law of synchronization is the reason why women synchronize their menstrual cycles. They're not giving it from one woman to another. It's not contagious. I think everybody understands that one. So if it's not contagious, how is it that women are getting their periods at the same time? And the answer is because they are synchronizing with their environment and therefore having a synchronized expression. Another example, people that live around cell phone towers statistically have higher rates of cancer. And it's not because the cell phone tower is evil. It's because the cell phone tower radiates specific frequencies. Your body works on specific frequencies. And when your body starts synchronizing with frequencies that are incompatible to it, it creates a distortion. Another example with this bottle to make it real easy. If this bottle was connected to something that kept it at 100 degrees Fahrenheit all the time, and I took water at 40 degrees Fahrenheit and poured it into the bottle, what's going to happen? The water is going to increase to 100 degrees Fahrenheit because of synchronization. It's called homeostasis, balance. Same thing with what's going on over here. Same thing with what Emoto shared. If I were to take the word love and put it on this bottle of water, as funny as it sounds, there are studies that show over and over again, the energy and intention behind that word holds a certain frequency to it. That frequency will be embedded on the water, just like the water will change its temperature based on the temperature of the container. Only instead of using temperature, we're using the energy that you're putting on the container. It's the same thing expressed differently. It's all science-backed. It's just expressed in a different way. So in this case, this is the container. You're the water. And when you go around it, it is imprinting its energy onto you for you to synchronize with. It's based on a science called cymatics. Cymatics spelled with a C. Have you ever seen, Rob, the videos on Instagram or Facebook where somebody takes the salt or the sugar and they put it on the metal and they vibrate the metal and it makes a shape?
Mm-hmm.
That's called cymatics. It's the shape of sound. Every sound has a shape to it. Every frequency has a shape to it. A word like the word love or the word hate has a frequency to it and therefore has a shape to it. That shape was expressed in Emoto's scientific studies through the shape of the molecular formation of water. This is doing the same exact thing. So beyond the color, beyond the energetic fields that it's creating through this technology, the affirmations are literally impacting your body, just like they impact the water, because your body is made up of primarily water.
And I'm assuming you could just change the structure, the color formatting, the cadence based off of what emotion or energy or vibe you're trying to, target at the moment. Like if you're about to go to the gym, you're probably going to have a different color scheme and pattern than if you're about to relax for the evening or something.
Correct. So gym would be more red focused.
Gotcha.
For example, if you're looking to target your heart and your lungs, it would be more green focused because that's the optimal frequency of those organs. Now that's just the color aspect. I can also change the affirmations on the screen. So now the affirmation of something focused on your kidney will have a different outcome than a focus on your heart. You can change that too based on Emoto's work. So it gives you the ability to target what you're looking for without you having to continuously put effort into doing it because it's running it for you. There are 16 different main programs on the technology and an infinite amount of how you can change those affirmations.
So, like in a use case scenario, you just travel with that everywhere you go. You have it in the room, and you try to have that just as a constant in your day to day activities.
So for me, I mean, there are wellness centers that have this all around the world. There are wellness centers that have technologies like this in general all around the world. On a network that I personally founded and I run, we have about 500 wellness centers around the world. So anytime I'm traveling, no matter what country it's in, I'm traveling generally to one of those centers that have a technology like this to be able to speak and lecture. So no matter where I am, for the most part, I'm always around it. But the best way to use something like this would be to really sleep around it, because it's like, I mean, I like doing things that I can do while I'm doing other things. So I don't have
Yeah.
to, just stacking things on top of each other. So it's more efficient. And if I can do something while I sleep, and it helps recharge my cells, because that's part of what this is doing. It's increasing cellular millivoltage by increasing mitochondrial activity. So it's helping your cells increase the amount of electricity it's producing. When you have more of that, you have more energy to help the body heal itself. So sleeping around it is key. And I've seen some incredible, incredible things come out of it with my own personal family.
And if you're sleeping right, you don't have to be obviously looking at it visually. So just having it in the room. Now, with me recording this remotely in Arkansas while you're in Florida, like, am I getting any benefit by it being visually, there on the screen, or is it not
Maybe,
relevant to me?
maybe, but I can't answer. I don't know how to answer that one scientifically. There's no like study on that. My gut and my logic would say you're already doing it through a camera. Maybe there's some effectiveness in terms of the intentionality aspect, but it's like seeing something over a camera versus being in the room with it. There's a
Yeah.
difference. Now, there are some people, like I've put up transmissions with this technology on YouTube, and there are some people that have some pretty awesome experiences, but the vast, vast majority, it's happening when you're in the room.
Gotcha. I know you're going to these events that have that technology. Like, if you were to take a week without it at all, like what kind of feedback are you getting if you're totally without it?
Amazing. And I'll tell you why. Because here's the goal with this thing. The goal with this thing is to get to a point where you never, ever, ever need to use it again. And the way to do that is by understanding that you are the technology. Like everything this is doing, you could do yourself. The problem is, in the world that we're living in right now, we do have a lot of resistance points and things that are mitigating that process. Like, for example, the sun gives you vitamin D, but like our skies are sprayed with a bunch of garbage, and there's a lot of problems there. So we take vitamin D supplements. The goal is to get to a point where you never need to take the vitamin D supplement because your body is just creating it itself. Same thing with this technology. You could look at it in essence, like as an analogy or comparison, like the same thing as a vitamin D supplement. The goal is to get to a point where we never need it again. Now, just to make this real clear, because this is important, if anybody thinks you're just going to walk in and you're going to have this magical experience and then you're going to leave and then you're going to go eat McDonald's and drink Coca-Cola, it's not going to happen. Meaning you need to take not the reductionism approach, but the holism approach. Your food needs to change. It needs to be healthier. It needs to be real food. You can't be eating out of plastic bags. Your water needs to be clean. It can't have chlorine. It can't have fluoride. It needs to be real, clean, pure, structured water. Your thoughts need to be clear. Your stress, the breath, the oxygen you bring into your body, that's where meditation comes in. Woo or not, it's calming down the nervous system. You're taking a moment to breathe. So I do all those things all the time anyways, with or without this. I'm not always around it. And it's not something that I live my life of like, oh my God, I'm not around the light system. No, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? That's not at all how I live and not at all how I hope other people live. It's a tool to help along the way. It's a stepping stone to get you to what I would call your highest potential as a human being. There are many things to do alongside it. Walking barefoot on the beach is a beautiful thing to do. Swimming in the ocean is a beautiful thing to do. Be a human again, right? We're living in like these concrete, fake things. I mean, look where I am and look where you are. Nothing about this is natural. It's cool. We could talk, but nothing about this is natural. So the more we can just connect a little bit and reignite that electricity in our body, that's what walking barefoot does. It's also a scientific backed way of being able to ground yourself to this planet because the earth has a charge and you have a charge. And by walking barefoot without the plastic shoes, you're actually increasing that charge. So all those things, clean food, clean water. I would do that all the time. And there are a lot of people that don't have this in their home. Most people actually don't. And they go to the wellness centers and they go and experience it at wellness centers near them. So I see it as a stepping stone, not an ultimate destiny. The ultimate reality is how do we just come back to ourselves? And how do we reignite that incredible, incredible technology that we call the human body?
Yeah, it does seem that that's been dormant in us for so long now, man. Like we're just pacified by all the noise that we're inundated with in
Yeah.
the current day and age. I mean, like it's easy to become soft. It's easy to just become complacent and mediocre. And like there's very little real human connection anymore too. I mean, social media is great. Being able to talk to you across the country is great. But like just simply connecting with people in your own neighborhood
Yeah.
across the street from you. Like I feel like we miss out on that opportunity so much. And I feel like that's where the real energy can be found.
It's true. Everybody's on their phones. There are pros and cons to everything. We could be a lot more efficient, but we're more efficient with less quality today. And we eat more with less nutrition today. And we have more of everything and somehow less of all of it. It's this weird thing that we've created in this world. And it's only going to go two ways. It's either we're going to destroy ourselves or we're going to learn from our mistakes and fix them, or a combination of both.
Yeah. I don't try to be cynical at all, but I feel like there's almost got to be like this implosion point where like something catastrophic happens in order for people to wake up to the reality of the trend that they're on cannot be sustained for forever. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is what I would call a law. So, I mean, look at it from a logical standpoint. Let's say me and you are in a home and you're sleeping and I'm awake and the home is on fire and me and you are connected. What happens to you happens to me. And I say me and you are connected because on not a spiritual level also, but on a scientific level, energy can't be created or destroyed. It's all one continuous thing going on with different expressions. Me and you are literally connected. We are, whether anybody likes it or not, no matter how far we are from one another. There is an interconnectivity going on here. So with that, if you're in the house and the house goes on fire and you're sleeping, and if you die, I die, I need to wake you up. So I'm going to start shaking you and say, Rob, wake up. And you're not waking up. So what am I going to do next? I'm going to get more aggressive. And you're not waking up. And I'm going to keep getting more and more and more aggressive until you wake up. And you may wake up with a broken nose and a black eye. And if you didn't know that there was a fire in the house, you're going to be mad at me and say, Jason, why did you punch me in the face? Why did you break my nose? But if you knew the fire was in the house, when you wake up, you're going to say, thank you. You're going to say, thank you for waking me up, because if you didn't wake me up, I wouldn't have made it out of here. And that's exactly what's going on in the world today. So I don't think it's cynical. I think it's the opposite. The worst things that happen to us in the world are the most necessary things in order to wake us up. And if we choose not to wake up from those things, they're going to get louder. And that happens on an individual level and it happens on a collective level. For me, it started with this shoulder dislocating once and then twice and then the third time. And it happened 23 times. And I got 3 shoulder surgeries by the age of 18. I almost needed to get a mechanical shoulder by the age of 18, which is insane. I was in a sling for 10% of my life by the age of 18 on my dominant arm, my left hand. From there, I still wasn't listening to the message of, Jason, you're not on the right path here. You got to change. You got to do things differently. You came here for a different purpose. So what happened next? I got a staph infection in my leg. It almost killed me. I was in the hospital for a very long time, between the ages of 14 to 18 years old. It happened to me very young. And that's when I understood. And it happened to me in more of a spiritual experience. So it didn't start with logic. Logic came later of how to connect the dots. But there was this realization that I had of, I'm not a victim to what's going on here. And it's not a punishment what's going on here either. It's a blessing. It's a gift that I'm trying to be given. And for me to sit in the hospital almost dead and say thank you was the biggest life-changing moment I've ever experienced, because I suddenly realized that none of this is happening to me. It's happening for me. Everything here is happening for us. Because if everything is interconnected, just like you're not going to take a hammer and break your own leg, this one thing that's interconnected, call it God, call it source, call it conscious, call it energy, call it Jesus, call it whatever. I don't care what you call it. But the thing that we don't know what to call, that everybody has a different name for, that makes up everything, is the thing that we're all a part of. And that thing would never do anything to hurt itself, just like you would not take a hammer and break your own leg. So I had that realization that brought me to the point of logic after. It didn't start logically. It started as, whoa. And it happened through a lot of trauma. And I mean, that's the path that I've been on for a very long time now. That's what I do today. It started from something that was, in my life, catastrophic. 3 months ago, my dad died. He died in my arms, bleeding out, and I was covered in his blood. You know what a traumatic experience that is? And I'm going to sit here and tell you, and he was only 62 years old, unexpected. I'm going to sit here and tell you that there was a gift in his passing. There was a gift in what I got to experience in that moment with my dad dying with his blood all over me in my arms. When you get to that point, there's nothing that can take you down anymore, because you see the world in a different way. Because the beauty, the gift that I got to receive from the death of my own father in the way that I just explained just now in March was the fact that I got to see very clearly somebody that I love move out of their body. And I say move out of their body because I don't know if you've ever seen somebody very, very close to you die right in front of your eyes. But I saw the light coming out of his eyes. Suddenly the eyes started getting a lot more faded until it looked like he had blurred vision, but he was dead. I got to feel and really see, not just in this mental point, but right in front of me, I got to truly experience the difference between my father and my father's body. And there's nothing spiritual or woo-woo. There's maybe something spiritual about it, but there's nothing woo-woo about that when you see it. Because I got to see, I got to feel, I got to understand the fact that energy can't be created or destroyed, and I literally saw it leave his eyes. So 12 hours later, when I buried his body, I buried his body. I didn't bury him. And it helped me deal with it in such a different way, because I was able to move forward and go through this path with him in a different relationship. Now, some may call that a coping mechanism. To me, it's law. It's a fact. It's how things work. My point for sharing this is when you change your relationship with how you see certain things, when you understand certain fundamental building blocks of how things actually work, not what I think, not this woo-woo thing that no one understands, everything spiritual can be grounded in something physical because they're reflections of each other. You just need to know where to look. And when you can do that, that's really how you master this life. That's what this technology is based on. It's based on natural law. It's not based on somebody's genius. It's based on the genius of this creation of life. And it just put it into technology.
What do you call it? Like when you were rattling off, spirituality, religion, faith, Jesus, whatever, woo-woo, what do you call it?
I don't call it.
You don't call it?
No. I don't call it because I can't call it. Because to call something is to limit it of all other things. When you know something, can you know infinity? No, you can't. It never ends. So the reason why I give all the terms is because everybody likes calling it something. Call it whatever I don't care what you call it. Right? I'm not identifying it with anything. I don't even know what the hell to call it. I mean, what is it? What is this thing? How are we talking right now? I mean, think about it for a second. How am I talking and you're understanding what's coming out of my mouth? It's the craziest thing in the world. And you can give me the scientific, you have the brain and the synapse. No. How does it actually work at the base of it all? And when you understand that it's infinite, there is no base of it all. And therefore, I can't call it. I just know that it exists.
I can respect that for sure. I feel like there's a lot of people that are in denial to that something existing, kind of going back to that reductionist theory. Because I mean, I come from a family of, very by the book scientific thinkers, academics, and I respect their intellect, but it's like there's this emptiness or void there because they can't explain this thing that we're talking about right now.
And the more they try, the more they'll fail.
Yeah.
You can't. You cannot explain something that's infinite. You can only understand its governing laws. That's all you could do. Now, I mean, take an atheist. It's not that they don't believe in God. I mean, I don't believe in God. I know that there's something here. I don't have to believe in anything. I mean, look around you. There's something going on here. There's an order to something. That's not a belief. It's a fact. But an atheist just has a different word. The thing that they don't believe in is the type of definition that the Jew or the Christian or the Muslim gives them. That's what they don't believe in. But what they say is that there was the Big Bang and, these atoms or whatever collided and created. Okay, cool. I don't care what you call it. There was something that came out of something. And that something must have come out of something. And it comes to a point where we can keep asking that question until it never ends. And that thing that never ends, whether you call it God or not, I'm not talking about a man in the sky that punishes you. I'm talking about an order and an intelligence of the world. And whether you're a scientist, an atheist, or a devout religious person, you can't argue that one. There's an order here.
Yeah. An order that I don't think can be explained through randomized chance over enough time.
Disorder is simply the boundaries of where our awareness ends. And that's something that I was taught by a dear friend of mine, Robert Edward Grant. Entropy is simply the limitations of where our current awareness ends. And the example he gives, which I'll give today, it's a great one, an interview I did with him. I don't even remember how he said it, but I'll give you the principle. Something to do with a circle and pi. And how you get pi, the 3.14, which I think is the circumference of every circle to its diameter or something like that, is pi. So there's a relationship between the circumference of a circle and the diameter of a circle, no matter how big or small that perfect circle is. Doesn't matter. The diameter, the relationship between what I believe to be, if I'm remembering correctly, between the diameter of the circle or the radius and the circumference of the circle is pi. Now, before they knew that, they just called it random. And then the awareness expanded and they learned what pi was, which is that relationship. So it used to be chaos and it turned into order. That means that there is no such thing as disorder. Disorder is simply order that we don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that, man. Where do you feel people fall short in being receptive to this kind of information? Like where is their bottleneck or roadblock? Like what is limiting you from making an impact and just relaying this message to the masses?
You've heard of the ego before, and the ego is not a bad thing so long as you master it. What does being a master of the ego and a servant to the ego mean? Servant to the ego means you allow it to take over you. It controls you. You don't control it. What is the ego? The ego is the part of you that only lives in this physical world. So when a bear is chasing you, you don't understand, or the ego doesn't understand the law of thermodynamics, the first one. Energy can't be created or destroyed. Because if it did, now let's go just a little spiritual for a second, or the laws of energy. You know what makes me laugh about scientists a lot? Maybe your family too. They'll tell you reincarnation doesn't exist, and yet they proved it themselves. And I'll tell you how they proved it themselves. Energy can't be created or destroyed. If energy can't be created or destroyed, then the energy that makes up your body must decompose in order to recompose. And we see trees do it all the time and turn into mushrooms. Now, you want to say my soul goes into this body and I turn into an octopus? I don't know that one, right? That's not what I'm saying here. I don't know the mechanism by which it works. But by scientific fact and by energetic law, reincarnation must exist. Because all it's saying is that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. Therefore, me as Jason, you as Robert, at some point will die. The body will decompose and the energy will transform. It's not going to die. It can't. It's going to decompose in order to recompose into something else. So back to the ego. The ego believes the reductionistic standpoint of things. That's how it's wired. And it's wired that way to be your defense in dangerous situations. When a bear is chasing you, if your soul is just like, oh, yeah, death doesn't exist, then you're never going to run. The ego thinks it exists. It comes from that perspective. And it says, run as fast as you possibly can, get the adrenaline pumping, and get the hell out of there. That's the job of the ego. It's to keep you alive. However, we're no longer living in that world of physical survival anymore. We're living in a different world now. So now the ego takes on certain evolutions. So now it starts believing certain things or being stressed by certain things that, like, you're being a servant to it. The ego likes knowing things because it gives itself closure. Because in what world? It's very uncomfortable for people to sit there and say, I'm okay with not knowing. It's very uncomfortable because the ego needs to know because it's a defense mechanism. If it doesn't know something, it's in a state of danger. Look at your family. My family's the same way. Some of them. My uncle, and he's heard many times the things that I shared, but he can't go there. And I look at him and I try and reverse engineer it because there's no judgment there. I love him to death. And I look at him and I'm like, okay, so you have a belief system. You're secure with the belief system. I am challenging the belief system. You don't like the challenge, and therefore you refute what's being said. That's all that's going on here. Because what would happen if your family listened to, or not just listened, but accepted the things that they're basically proving themselves, but don't want to accept? What that would mean for them is they would need to take their entire belief system and shift it. That's a very, very scary thing for the ego to do. And for that reason, you got to understand where they're coming from. Most people will not do that. Most people will just sit there and say, it's easier to say you're wrong and keep living my life because most people agree with me. But what if most people are wrong?
Yeah, that's a very frustrating thing. They would totally dismantle their identity in so many ways, which is why they're so defensive. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like for me, I just want to know the truth, and I'm totally fine being open and receptive and being proven wrong if I am wrong, but like, I feel like having this, being attached to something at the hip with this ball and chain of your identity and ego through a false testament is like, that's not serving anybody. It's not serving you. You just have to be willing to be wrong and hear different perspectives.
I think the word you just used is it hits it perfectly. The ego identifies with beliefs. And when one goes against those beliefs, if the ego is identified with them and you allow yourself to be identified with them, then if I attack the belief, I'm in essence attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, the foundational problem here. Identification with belief. Because what if the belief is false? Look at Einstein versus Newton. Newton says time is absolute. Einstein said time is relative. You know how long it took for people to accept what he was saying? Because professors for years and years and years were teaching that time is absolute. So what do they have to do? They have to accept that all the years that they taught all these students and all the studies that they've ever done are false. That's difficult. The deeper you identify with it, the harder it is to walk away from.
I think we have to be careful what we build our identity on. Like we get so hung up on who we are as individuals and what we can hang our hat on. And I mean, that truly can set us up for the worst downfall. But if we're really selective in who we identify as from a character standpoint, like if you're placing your identity on, good character values, then you're kind of insulated from all that
Yep.
nonsense.
Well, I also think that if you identify with, because there are productive things to identify with beyond values, if you can identify with the ability to not need to identify with everything absolutely, you're in a good position. If you can be comfortable with being uncomfortable, you're in a good position. I think that's part of the equations to success over here, of understanding how the ego works and then mastering it, because it's going to fight. You just need to know how to center it, how to ground it, and how to use it, because the ego is also a very good thing, right? It's
Yeah.
going to keep you alive in dangerous situations. It's also going to keep you motivated to do things in this physical world. So let's say on a spiritual level, you really feel in your heart, you want to build a foundation to help homeless children, whatever, something like that. Well, that's coming from the heart, but what's going to execute it? Not the heart. The ego is going to be the one that has to read all the legal paperwork, put together the foundation, get the EIN number. When somebody sues you or comes after you, the ego is going to be the one that's coming from a place of, you're coming after me. Let's go. Let's make this happen. So there's a productive part of the ego as well. So long as you're using it and it's not using you, I think it can bring you to a great place. But unfortunately, most of the world is in the opposite way right now.
Yeah. What do you struggle with? What has you excited? Like when you look at what's on the horizon for you, like what is the biggest questions that you're trying to solve personally?
That's such a good question. I'll give you what drives me. And then maybe it will evolve into what you just asked, because that's a deep question. What drives me and what I want to see in this world is something that I know is possible. So there's faith there for sure. And there's this knowingness as well. And it's a combination of both. I hate the fact that this world is so sick, because it is. There's a lot of people that it's simple stuff that we should know at this point, and we don't. And it's led us down a crazy path. And what hurts me is seeing people that are going down a path or have gone down a path that have damaged them in a way, and they don't understand how to get out of it. And most people just say, well, take this pill, or, all you have to do is this. It bothers me. And it bothers me because of the system of how it's built, which we spoke about, which I wouldn't say I want to dismantle, because I think if I focus too much on that, it's going to strengthen that thing. So instead, I'm doing my best to build something new. I want to build a new path for when people are ready to be able to see a different way, a way that the current path is actually based on. Meaning alternative medicine is not alternative. It's the source of what everything comes from. The thing that's alternative are the things that we use today, but we call it conventional. What's really going on here, and this is part of what, in a way, it comes from a place of being pissed off, to be honest, of why I want to make the changes that I want to make. I mean, take Advil. Advil is a synthetic version of the willow bark tree. It comes from the willow bark tree. But you can't patent something that occurs naturally in nature. So what do? You take something that occurs naturally in nature, the real medicine. You create a synthetic version of it and add some chemicals to it. You call that your patent, and then you have an exclusive for the next 20 years to be able to sell it for exorbitant amount of money. And not only that's what's going on, but they're giving us something that doesn't work as well. So what I'm trying to figure out here is I don't want to I've reached a lot of people, not enough people. The millions is not what I'm going for. My question is, how do we reach 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion people because they reached them the other way. They reached them and they brainwashed the hell out of this planet. And if we simply have not a campaign that's going to change everything overnight, but I believe that if we're persistent enough, and I see this the direction that the world is going, maybe slower than I'd like, but it's going. If we're persistent enough and bring more truth to the world, even the people that don't want to accept it will eventually come to terms with it. Because if it's true, nothing can change that. So what I struggle with is how do I reach even more people? How do I connect even more people to their true selves, or help them connect to their true selves? How do I get even more people to start thinking for themselves in a world where everybody's living paycheck to paycheck and has 2 to 3 jobs? That's a really hard thing because we're doing so in a system that makes what I'm saying almost impossible. But I don't believe it's impossible. I just think it's hard. And I also believe that will succeed.
I feel like all the information that we need is already there. Like, we all inherently know these truths. I mean, when I look at like my wheelhouse with nutrition, I can go down the freaking rabbit hole about macronutrient partitioning and, hormone regulation, metabolism. But like, at the end of the day, if people just simply ate real food that was nutrient dense and removed all the noise, they'd be better off. All this information coming out about light therapy, circadian rhythm, like get outside first thing in the morning, watch the sunrise, watch the sunset, be barefoot. I mean, all this stuff can be distilled down to such a simple essence. When it comes to the petri dishes of water, like having positive thoughts and vibes that just project from you, that makes total sense. It's going to have a positive impact on those around you. It's like we have the information at our fingertips. Like, we already inherently know what it is. I don't feel like we're at a loss of information. We're just at a weeding through all that noise that's there, distracting that truth is the issue that we face, it seems.
100%. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that I've shared is not mine. It's been around for a very long time. I just take it and I do my best to kind of reach exactly what you're talking about. How do we take it and explain it in a simpler way, in a layperson way, without all the big words, in a way that a 5-year-old can understand? That's what I continuously try to do. And I think we just got to keep moving forward. Like, we're on a good path. Don't get me wrong. People are going to get hurt, right? I'm not saying it in a cynical way. I'm just being real. People are going to die. People are going to get sick. It's part of life. It's all good. My goal is to make it a smaller part of life, right?
Yeah.
Where we don't have to deal with things that are unnecessary. But sometimes, if you're too deep asleep, you're going to have to be shaken. And sometimes shaking looks like cancer. It's not a punishment. It's a blessing to get you to ask yourself, why is this happening for me? What is the silver lining? Let's take this seriously as a challenge head on. Let's beat it. And then let's teach the world how to do it. If we just did that with all our problems, this world would be so much better.
Yeah, that's the best way to look at it, man. Like, that's when you shoulder the responsibility, you carry that weight. It's like, it's scary, but it's so much more empowering. I mean, you
100%.
feel capable as opposed to, having the world happening to you. It's happening for you. That's just a total mindset shift. I mean, kind of like the hope and fear thing. It's just all in how you look at it. So 100% agree on all fronts, brother.
Awesome, man. You're a cool dude. I enjoy my time with you.
Likewise. Where do I find out more about you, dive deeper into your world? What's all the social plugs and all that good stuff?
So just my name, Jason Shurka, the real Jason Shurka on Instagram. One of the big things that we work on is right behind me, Unified. So we have Unified TV. It's a very entertaining and educational video streaming platform. So we got a lot of things on all the topics that we just spoke about. Lots of movies, documentaries, shows, series, workshops. All of that's on Unified TV. And Unified Healing is where you can find technologies like this and really just energy-based leading technologies around the world. So unifiedhealing.com is where you can find hundreds of centers, probably near you. It's in 55 countries, and it's growing every single day.
Very cool, man. Well, I'll definitely link out, make it easy for people to find you. And if you're ever in Arkansas, man, hit me up. Let me know.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.